Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. My name is Jay, and you're watching Clouded Reactions. So he actually called me. I wanted to do this reaction before I went to work, but I kind of fell asleep, took a nap. But I want to stay on my schedule, so that way I have a lot of videos accumulated over the days, so I have a nice steady upload pace. So right now I'm at work. I'm actually on my lunch, but we're gonna start the Swedish history trilogy brought to you by Sabaton. So I'm gonna end the Carlos Rex album. Feels like forever. I kind of missed the Carlos Rex album already, to be honest with you. Not just listening to the music, but like talking. I really loved. Almost every song was a hit to me. If I don't know if like every American heard it, but like all the songs were catchy. They all had good original music to them. All have solos. Each song is so unique. It's crazy, and the lyrics, considering that it's talking about history, it's more than just words on a piece of paper that somebody came up with. It's telling a story of people who fought, amazing battles, or they faced, amazing feats in their lives. And they're no longer with us, but luckily Sabaton can tell their story. And I think it's a shame. I really do think. I think it's a shame that they're not more mainstream. They're probably no, they're not more mainstream worldwide, and I think they should be. But yeah, we're gonna listen to the history behind the trilogy. So this is gonna be part one, and yeah, let's just hop right on in.
Today is going to be a little bit different on Sabaton history. Today, we are not going to be talking about a song, a specific song, which is what we do in each of the episodes. Today is part one of a three-part trilogy, and we're going to use music from a whole Sabaton album to illustrate this trilogy. And what is this trilogy about?
Lord of the Rings, right?
Okay, yeah, but also...
Star Wars?
But also...
Swedish Empire, of course.
Yeah, Rise and Fall, the Swedish Empire. And Star Wars and the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Cool.
We had to...
Oh, wait, this is episode 4, A New... Hope. So yes, welcome to part one of the Swedish trilogy, the history of their time as a great power. Well, to be more precise, the parts that I have not already covered in the episodes that cover all of the songs on Carolus Rex. This trilogy fills in all the gaps, but for the full story, watch all the episodes. The news of the death of Swedish King Gustavus Adolphus on the battlefield of Lutzen in 1632 had sent shockwaves throughout Europe. The Swedish Riksdag immediately declared a national emergency, urging both the Swedes and their allies to keep calm and carry on. Gustav Adolf had been a living legend for real. He was the heroic Protestant champion, the lion from the north. But now, the lion was dead, slain by his enemies, and Sweden's Chancellor Axel Oxenstierna came to the grim realization that it was way easier to get involved in a war than it was to get out of it. But the very first thing he had to arrange was the line of succession. The dead king's only surviving children were an illegitimate son and his 6-year-old daughter Christina. There was nothing in the Swedish constitution that prevented a woman from ascending to the throne, but Christina had to be of age first, which she would not be until 1644. And until then, her queen mother would reign in her stead together with the Regency Council. Problem was, Maria Eleonora suffered a mental breakdown at the news of her husband's death and was declared unfit to rule. When they brought the dead king's body back to Stockholm in August 1633, they had to post guards in front of Riddarholm Church each night to prevent the queen from opening his sarcophagus again. Sick from grief, the queen succumbed to despair, cursing the barbaric Swedes for her fate. Over the coming years, she wore nothing but black and chased all relatives away who tried to appeal to reason. Christina would describe in her biography how sanity began to slip away from her mother's mind. As a young child, she felt smothered by her lachrymose sorrow. All her rooms were dark, with the windows draped with black curtains, with candles illuminating the royal quarters all day long. And each night, she had to sleep in her mother's arms, while her father's heart hung in a golden casket above them. Oh yeah, his heart. The Queen Mother began to surround herself with all kinds of strange eccentrics. Most disturbing for the young child was the presence of her mother's malformed servants, which she describes as dwarfs and hunchbacks. Christina hated them, according to her, because she was deformed herself. Not by birth, but because she had been dropped as a baby. One of her shoulders was misshapen and stood a bit higher than the other. For her entire life, she believed that this fall was not an accident, but an attempt on her life. For over 2 years, the child Christina had to endure these endless...
I think if you wanted to kill a child, it would be a lot easier. If it was an attempt on her life, I mean, I know that's the king's daughter, but like still, it's not that hard to touch the children. Simple poisoning or something. So I think it was an accident, but it just got to her head maybe. I don't know, that could just be me thinking. Or maybe it was real. I don't know, you guys tell me. But it seems easier to kill children than it would be to kill, like, the king. Even though the children is like the offspring of kings. For some reason, it just seems like it'll be easier.
Daily ceremonies of mourning and the daily Lutheran sermons for her father's death. Her seclusion became so bad that the court tried to remove her from her mother, but Maria Eleonora wept and protested so bitterly that it was no use. Interestingly enough, Gustav Adolf had wanted his half-sister Catherine to care for his daughter, which she eventually did when Maria Eleonora was finally sent away in the late 1630s. Christina then got some relief when she was old enough to be tutored. She had to sit and study for up to 10 hours a day, unbearable for a young child, but common for European monarchs. She often slept just 3 or 4 hours a night, starting her studies early in the morning, even during the dark Swedish winter. All those early years of seclusion turned the formerly active and high-spirited child into a neurotic and generally unhappy young woman. At the time, it was uncommon in Sweden to drink milk, and young Christina was not allowed to drink water either, most certainly for hygienic reasons. Instead, even as a child, she had to drink wine and beer, whose taste she despised. She consequently often spent days without drinking anything, which did wonders for her health. That was sarcasm. She grew to also despise the court, the weakness of her mother, and the strict Lutheran orthodoxy which was forced upon her. Much of it stemmed from the wishes of her father, who wanted her to learn about the true nature of God, his cult and word. In contrast to his hated Catholics and Calvinists, he wanted her education to rival his own. No one was allowed to encourage Christina to pursue any feminine trifles except for virtue and modesty, and of course, no foreigner was allowed to poison her mind with foreign ideas. When Christina had been little more than a baby, he took her with him on military parades. When a general asked the king if the cannon fire might not be a bit scary for such a young girl, the king just answered, "Fire! She's a soldier's daughter. She must get accustomed to it." Now, there are some who might think that this chauvinistic attitude at court was rather typical for the age, but no. Remember, Queen Elizabeth I of England's rule was not that far gone, and the memory of her reign was still vividly remembered in Europe. The Virgin Queen had not compromised her ways, nor did she hide her femininity, and yet she still demanded respect from every European ruler. Who knows what could have become of Christina under Gustav's leadership, but he had left for war when she was 4 and had never come back. Well, not alive.
A fitting song for what he just said. The king... Oh, sorry. I gotta remember to turn off the AC when I'm talking. But a fitting song that they're playing that song where they just said right now that the king left when she was 4 and never came back again. Even though he wasn't... I think... I forgot how old he was when the war had started, when he went off to war. But it's just... How fitting a song, you know? They know what they're doing. Play.
When Christina was 20, had begun her rule, and was still neither married nor pregnant, she became a hot topic of European gossip. Some accused her of secret romances. Others saw in her tomboyishness and masculine character underlying lesbian tendencies. The Swedish aristocracy urged her to find a husband. The most suitable candidate seemed to be her cousin, Carl Gustaf. Both of them were close and of marital age, and although there was, in fact, a romantic spark, she refused to make promises. Carl Gustaf embodied pretty much the ideal of a Swedish warrior. He already commanded men in Sweden's battles and was overall an exemplary soldier. Christina, however, simply did not want to marry, no matter how much the council or Oxenstierna tried to push her to one candidate or the other. Instead, she spent her time indulging in reading foreign books such as Descartes' Principes de la Philosophie. She embraced the ideas of enlightenment and spent hours a day discussing philosophical and religious ideas with her inner circle. The 30 Years' War had opened up Sweden to international culture, even if it was mainly just because of the amount of loot and bribes the generals carried back to the country. The old Swedish simplicity gave way to chairs padded with Spanish leather, to ornate furniture from Germany, Dutch paintings, or marble statues from Italy. Christina even had a pet lion and brought Sweden its first French ballet. All these things further fueled her curiosity about the world beyond the Baltic Sea and her longing to escape the suffocating atmosphere of her court. She was well aware that she was the daughter of Sweden's legendary warrior king, and that she had a duty to her country and his legacy. But
Pause. So far, it kind of sounds like she's like the female version of Charles XII. He wasn't like kind of opposite when it came to the girls. He was only about the battlefield. Well, I guess that's kind of, but like he wasn't like the marital part or the domestic part of being a king. He was just like infatuated with like the warrior part. And she, I guess, well, it's not exactly the same, I guess, but like she didn't really care about the woman part, about acting feminine, but she was more of the tomboyish. She read books, and 10 hours of learning a day. She probably got accustomed to like learning and stuff and wanting to read. So that could be a sign of why you Swedes are so damn smart, man. Sometimes you guys' comment section is like a brief historic tutorial of history, and I'm personally impressed. I really am impressed. So, what was I saying? Where the hell was I going with this? See, just another reason why Americans are a little dumb. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the brightest bulb in the closet drawer, but what was I saying? Let's keep playing. Play.
What if she was simply not cut out for this life? She was unhappy, lonely, and depressed. Would she have to sacrifice any lifelong happiness to duty, or was there a way out? Meanwhile, in Germany, as the Habsburg Emperor Ferdinand III was finally willing to negotiate, Christina pushed for peace. The war, which had taken her father's life, was coming to an end at the Westphalian Peace Conference in 1648. Sweden did well in the settlement and controlled most of the Baltic coast and had possessions in northern Germany. At the same time, Christina's dreams of abdication became more than just a vague desire. While she made the public believe that she was set on marrying Carl Gustaf, in reality, she would use her cousin to flee the monarchy. She had already elevated his position by making him generalissimo, but now she would make him king. September 1650, just 1 month before her official coronation, delayed by the war, Christina made the final step forward. She wanted Carl Gustavus to be declared her successor, and even more, her heir, marriage or not. After much discussion, and even more bribery, the Swedish aristocracy eventually gave their blessing. Despite all this going on, Christina's coronation was one of the most pompous in Swedish history. Surrounded by lines of halberdiers, she drove through Stockholm in a carriage covered in velvet and gold, and followed by mules and camels. Camels! A triumphal arch had been built to illustrate Sweden's victories in the 30 Years' War. A Swedish lion holding a thunderbolt was framed by captured German battle standards. Wearing a robe of pure velvet, Christina stepped into the great church, followed by Carl Gustaf wearing a crown. While all of Sweden enjoyed the celebrations of her coronation, Christina knew herself that her days as a queen were already numbered. She had finally decided to give up her throne and leave Sweden altogether. Another reason for the decision to leave was that she was guilty of nothing more than high treason. For months, she had been secretly corresponding with the archenemy of the Reformation, the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. Christina now held nothing but contempt for the Lutherans and wanted to convert to Catholicism with the help of the Jesuits. Before this could come to light and endanger her life, she revealed her intentions to abdicate to the Riksdag. Christina had not been a terrible or an unfaithful queen, but her growing disinterest in politics and the fate of her realm was plain to see. Reluctantly, the Riksdag agreed. In May 1654, the day finally came. Christina declared in front of her court that her reign had become a terrible burden to her, and that she placed all her faith in her cousin, who would lead Sweden to greatness and carry on the tradition of Sweden's victories. Sweden, she said, would need a new warrior king. She, on the other hand, was like a southern flower, which could not survive in the harsh northern climate. The abdication ceremony a month later declared for Carl Gustav, or King Carl X de Gustav. Christina was finally free. She dressed in simple clothes and prepared her disguise to leave the country. She would go on to travel Europe and journey to Rome to explore her Catholic beliefs. Legend goes that the day Christina was preparing to leave the country, Carl Gustav one last time approached her and asked her to stay and marry him. Christina refused. Full of joy, she said, "Here I am at last at liberty and out of Sweden, where I hope never to return." As an afternote, she did return, and not that many years later. When Carl Gustav died less than 6 years later, with only a 5-year-old son as heir, she returned to Sweden to perhaps retake the throne. But with her Catholicism, this was now impossible. She remained only briefly in the country, and then on one other short visit several years later. Her life outside of Sweden is not within the scope of this video, but you should look it up because it's super interesting. Like, for real. Like, total 1600s Game of Thrones stuff for like decades, which doesn't really fit in with the Star Wars theme of this. Okay. That's it.
A New Hope. Actually, a highly overrated Star Wars movie, I think.
Well, it depends how you look at it.
It is by far the worst of the original trilogy.
Yeah, but it was the best of all because I was 10 years old when it came out. It was the best thing anybody had ever seen. It really was. I saw it like 10 times in the theater. Everybody did. It was the best thing I had ever seen in my life. And then Empire Strikes Back came out, and that's the best Star Wars movie.
That's the best Star Wars movie ever made.
Look, I still think the scariest thing in the world, even though they're not in the world and don't actually exist, is Imperial Walker. It's just when you see them do the and they're like, I still get scared.
I think my first Star Wars memory is the battle on Hoth.
Oh yeah, but you know when Luke's going out, to fly out against the Imperial Walkers. And, the co-pilot, I guess his name is Dak.
Yeah.
And Dak says, the kiss of death thing. Boy, I feel like I take on the whole Empire today. If you're ever at war, like I'm at war with you, I'm like, okay, Joachim, we got to go over the top. How do you feel? And you go, hey, let me show you a picture of my sweetheart. I'm like, you're never coming back, buddy. That's the kiss of death. That is the kiss of death. Show me a picture of your sweetheart. Tell me how you feel like taking on the Empire. All right, I'm coming back alone. Okay. No, but I have to say, though, I still the Star Wars. I don't call it A New Hope. I call it Star Wars because the first one was Star Wars. And I was born in 1967. I was 10. It's Star Wars. Yeah. Okay, there have been some shitty Star Wars movies.
Should we get into the Swedish Empire, maybe?
Oh yeah. Okay, but that was about there was an empire.
An empire.
Okay,
absolutely.
that empire was a bit larger than the Swedish.
Yes,
empire.
which really wasn't that great. When we're talking to size.
That's true. But we'll get back to that in part 2.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the idea.
Yeah, I mean, we said that in an earlier episode that this idea came when I wrote the song the music for the song "Long Live the King" or "Konungens Likfärd," and I just had this iconic painting of the funeral march of Carolus Rex, and I wrote the lyrics.
Yes, it's a really good painting.
I wrote the lyrics for the chorus in Swedish for some reason, and that whole thing turned into, wow, maybe we should do the album in Swedish. Maybe we should do album about the Swedish Empire, and the road it took us on is, yeah, I mean, the amount of research we had to do. All of a sudden, we had to find books that weren't in print anymore. We had help from Bengt Liljegren, a history professor at the University of Lund, I believe, written a book on Carolus Rex. You should check that out. It's actually really good. And I think it's in English as well. Going down all that rabbit hole, if you will, with that amount of research, we never used to go out and find books that are out of print.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay. Sure.
And do stuff like that.
Yeah, you would think that even for some of the more obscure things you guys write about, like I don't know, Rourke's Drift or whatever stuff, you still find plenty of material in print. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can go into any online bookstore and buy something. Yeah. Hell, I mean, 50% of the stuff we write about, you can find more than what would be necessary from our Wikipedia.
Yeah. To come up with some creative lyrics.
Yeah. So, but it was really interesting, but it was a really long project. Translating lyrics doesn't work.
Yeah.
We thought it would be easy. It's not. Some cases, like Lifetime of War, we had to write 2 different lyrics for the same subject.
But I love what we did. Many of you might have seen, we've covered Lifetime of War twice. Lifetime of War and Livstidig Krig.
Yep.
But the lyrics are not just the same lyric. There's 2 different stories.
2 very different stories.
That's really cool.
And it's so weird to sit there because you get stuck. Whenever you're creating something, or if you're used to something, let's say you write lyrics in Swedish first or English first, you're so used to then that train of thought and everything, and then to create something about the same subject equally good is really hard because you're constantly comparing. Sure. I mean, that turned out great in the Swedish version. And how do we get it as good as the English version? I mean, Swedish people are usually decent at English. Yeah. And I would say we're doing all right.
You have 9 years in school, 9 years of English?
Yeah.
9 years of English in school.
But that's, then it is by no means our native tongue.
No.
So it is like being in the Paralympics of it, especially when it became so obvious when we were comparing the lyrics and also my vocal performances between the Swedish version and the English version. I would do retakes and retakes of the English.
Yeah.
And normally we wouldn't do because they sounded good, but they did not sound as good as the Swedish takes.
Okay.
So in a sense, and I mean also we decided to do 2 albums and everything in 2 languages pretty late. So there wasn't enough time to book more studio time. So we did it all in like a month and a half. Recording, mixing, and I mean, there's a lot of choirs. Only imagine the amount of time it takes to sing 4-part harmonies and doing dubs in 2 languages with all the choirs that's on a Sabaton album. So yeah, a lot of sleepless nights.
How long was between when you first decided you're going to do this in 2 languages and it's the whole Carolus Rex concept? How long between that idea and when you went into the studio was it?
A couple of months, 2 months, 3 months maybe.
Uh-huh. You know, what I think is also interesting about this, specifically interesting for everyone out there, is probably the only thing that anyone at home is going to take away from this entire interview is that you said being Swedish is like being in the Paralympics. That's pretty much, that's about it. That's
not what I said. But okay.
So, for all you Swedes out there, he's not saying that's a bad thing.
You're going to get killed, you know that, right?
So, no, it's one of those comparisons, you don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing because you didn't expound on it. But we have a lot more to talk about this album and this concept, so we are going to get to that in part 2 of this Swedish trilogy. So do not miss that, and we will see you next time and every time right here on the Sabaton History Channel.
That's all for today. Thank you. subscriptions, check out Indie's other channels, become a Patreon. That's it. Get the fuck out of here.
Okay, so they actually did go into more detail about the actual history. So talking about Christina too, I wasn't expecting her to be brought up at all, and she was the main focus of the whole part one of Sweden's history trilogy. Wasn't expecting that. So actually, I get back to work, but it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. Like I said, I kind of thought it was pretty cool how she was like, she wasn't the more female type of female. She didn't care about her looks. She didn't care about marriage and family. Not really. I think it was weird that, I don't know, are they blood cousins? Or are they just like distant, non-related cousins? That he was the closest suitor. Gustav Adolphus, I think it was. That one threw me off a little bit. I was like, wait a minute. That's some Game of Thrones stuff right there. So I think I might want to check out what he was talking about what she did outside of Sweden. That's interesting. But I gotta go. Hope you guys enjoy your day. Hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. I'm gonna get the other part 2 out of the way. Then I got some other songs in store for you. I'm actually gonna react to their first album, which was Primo Victoria, I think it was called. I'm gonna get to that, but I'm gonna finish these 2 episodes, these parts 2 and 3. Hopefully, I'll be in my house because I don't really like this. It's kind of a bad setup. But I'll talk to you guys later, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.